This is a PlayStation 5 Pro. 2 years ago, I bought this for around $700. If you went out to get one of these today, it would cost you over $900. This is unprecedented. I have been playing video games and buying consoles for a very long time, and never has the price of a console actually gone up. And this isn't just true for the PlayStation 5, this is true for the Xbox Series S and X, all these PC handhelds, and even the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, to understand why this is happening, we also need to understand why the price of consoles went down over time in previous generations. Now, there are multiple reasons for this, but the main ones are that the component costs went down over time, manufacturing processes were streamlined, and we typically get mid-cycle console refreshes with the PS5 Pro or Xbox One S. However, all that is a thing of the past. The single biggest reason for these price hikes is the ongoing chip shortage, which I'm sure you've heard plenty about.
An explosion in artificial intelligence data centers and cloud computing is shrinking the supply of memory chips.
The artificial intelligence boom is devouring the world's supply of memory chips.
A shortage of memory chips is beginning to hammer profits.
And now a shortage in the world's supply of memory chips could start making your life more expensive.
A lot of this is caused by AI and data centers being built around the world. However, there's more to this story than what meets the eye. As much as I'd just like to blame AI and move on, there is a lot going on under the hood. And console gaming, as we know it, could change forever.
My name is Matt Piscatella. I am the executive director covering video games for Circana across different publishing and analytical roles.
Matt Piscatella is an industry veteran who's been entrenched in this side of the business for nearly 20 years.
I was hoping you could start out by just kind of talking about what determines the cost of a console.
Well, it starts with how much those consoles cost to make, from the cost of goods, research and development, but it also comes down to how much the company believes the consumer is willing to pay, and trying to find some sweet spot in there.
Hold up, before we continue, let's elaborate on that. So when it comes to designing a console, it all starts with research and development. Research and development is where they decide on the design of the console, the components it's going to have, the technology it's going to use, how the controller is going to look. Basically, they need to answer all the questions before they begin production. Now, the thing about R&D is that it can take years and there is no immediate return on investment. All this research and development is just that, research and development for a product that will eventually hit the market. Next, we have the components. These are all the materials needed to manufacture a console. This includes the guts of it and what's on the outside. Of course, we can't talk about components without touching on the ongoing chip shortage. This is the main reason why consoles are so much more expensive right now. Now, once the console design and components have been finalized, the console manufacturer needs to set up manufacturing. This is where the console actually gets built. You need to pay staff, equipment, resources, and other overhead costs. Once these consoles have been manufactured in bulk, then you need to ship them out to various retailers. You need to pay for retailer space, you need to pay for taxes, and of course, you need to pay for tariffs depending on which country the product is going to. At the end of this journey, it is then up to the market to decide if the console is worth the price. This is called demand, something I'm sure you've heard of before, but it basically determines how interested the market is in that product. If there is high demand, a lot of these consoles will sell. If there's low demand, they may sit on shelves for a very long time. Then it's up to the manufacturer to scale production in order to meet demand adequately. This is called supply.
Supply and demand is a basic economic concept, but there's a lot of nuance to it. It is the direct relationship between the manufacturer and the customer. Demand determines how much a manufacturer can and should scale the production of a product. If a manufacturer overestimates demand, they likely blew too much money on manufacturing costs and their product isn't going to turn a profit. If they underestimate it, then they failed to meet demand and are likely leaving revenue on the table. The thing is, the manufacturing cost of an individual product decreases with scale. A PlayStation 5, in theory, is cheaper to produce if Sony is producing tens of millions of them. As Matt said, it's up to manufacturers to hit that sweet spot in terms of pricing, but it's also important for manufacturers to understand the demand.
So all that's left is to tally up all these costs, price the console a little above that, and make a profit. Well, not quite.
In the past, sometimes we've seen manufacturers use a console as what's called the loss leader, which means you sell the console at a loss. However, you plan to make up for that drawback in other areas of spending, say selling accessories and software and that type of thing. Sometimes that's not how it works. Ultimately, the decision is the manufacturers to set that manufacturer's suggested retail price, and then the market determines whether that price is acceptable or whether it's not, based on if people buy it or not.
Famously, the PlayStation 3 sold at a significant loss, with reports estimating that Sony lost roughly $300 for each PS3 sold. An important note, though, is that a lot of these reports come from market research firms and not the actual manufacturers, making it hard to pin down the exact numbers. Selling anything at a loss may sound stupid, but this strategy has been around for some time. Razor handles are cheap, razor blades are not. Printers are cheap, ink is not. The idea is that if you get your platform into a household, then you have a long-term customer. If you bought a PS3 at launch, then you were likely to buy games and accessories for it down the line.
But hold on, if the consumer needs to agree on the set price of the console with their wallet, how come these consoles have gotten so expensive? Shouldn't Xbox and PlayStation just do the same and sell these consoles at a loss too?
The problem is that alongside the chip shortage, play habits have also changed a lot.
I mean, there's a portion of the audience that really wants the graphical bleeding edge, right? They want the best components to deliver the most frames or the most pixels and have the most intense graphical experience. And so in some respects, you have to push those limits for that portion of the audience, whereas the younger audience right now doesn't seem to care as much about that type of thing. You know, they're just perfectly fine playing Roblox and Fortnite on whatever device they already have on hand, and playing games like RV There Yet and other like less graphically intensive games.
The kicker is that a lot of these less intensive graphical games are free to play. So even if millions of people invest in a new console, there's a very good chance that a portion of the audience will not purchase any new games. The top 10 most played games in any given month consists of Minecraft, Fortnite, Roblox, GTA Online, and Marvel Rivals. All games that came out a couple years ago, and most of them are free to play. What's even more damning is that while large swaths of the player base are gravitating towards free-to-play live service titles, AAA development costs have skyrocketed.
If your game hits, you're golden, but the likelihood of that is getting a little bit smaller over time. And so when the bets are so big when it comes to development of these games, when the budgets are so big, if you don't hit, that is potentially lethal to the studio. And that's, you know, we're seeing that all the time these days.
So then, with all of this in mind, how do you sell a console at a loss? Well, you can't. This puts the industry in a really weird place. The components are getting more expensive, play habits are moving away from AAA releases, aside from the big hits of course, and AAA development costs have soared. It's hard to talk about all this without mentioning the I word. Inflation. The value of the dollar decreases over time, therefore a higher price tag doesn't necessarily equate to a more expensive product. Inflation plays a role in the price of goods, sure, but focusing solely on inflation doesn't do anyone any good.
You could get into these like spirals about inflation, like, oh, well, you know, $5.99 in 2006 dollars is X dollars or Y dollars today. And sure, but wages have also increased, as have the prices of everything else. So it's
Sure.
kind of tough to try to gauge things that way, in my opinion. I know people disagree with that, but you know, since 2019, wage growth has fallen behind average inflation by a couple percentage points. It's become tougher and tougher to be able to afford things over time, as you know, most people are feeling the pinch of, and now particularly when it comes to things like gas.
Yes, consoles are getting more expensive, but this doesn't happen in a vacuum. In fact, everything is getting more expensive, and wages have largely stagnated the last few years. That makes these price hikes doubly painful because for a lot of us, gaming is a hobby, and we are quickly getting priced out of it, at least for those of us who want to stay up to date with cutting-edge technology.
People do not buy video games in an economic vacuum. And that's where the stats start to get absolutely brutal. Inflation-adjusted rent has risen massively over the past several decades, while renter income has barely moved comparatively. So housing now eats like a third of the median renter's income, and that completely changes what affordable even means.
This is Jake Steinberg. He is a writer and professor who hosts the Critical Error podcast, a podcast that regularly dives into these sorts of issues. I sat down with Jake to dig deeper on this point.
Americans increasingly cannot afford any of the things that previous generations associated with adulthood. So homes are out of reach, retirement is fictional, healthcare will financially annihilate you, childcare costs are absurd, most people do not have emergency savings. And after like 40 years of conservative economic policy kind of shredding the social contract, people reorganized their emotional lives around smaller, attainable comforts. So the little treat economy, it's like something that people joke about because it sounds funny, but it's genuinely really, really bleak. These are like tiny purchases that become emotional stabilizers. Coffee, using Uber Eats, a new video game, I don't know, like a skin in Fortnite, whatever. It's like a little brief moment where people feel in control of their lives again. And I think that why that like $10 price increase on the game, whatever it is, why this discourse hits people so hard is because, like, sure, rationally $10 is not life-ending for somebody who's economically secure, but emotionally, people are reacting to the sensation that even the small comforts, the things that are keeping them sane, the one thing that gives them something to look forward to during the day, the thing that we have decided to treat like medicine because medicine is inaccessible to us, that is becoming unstable too. That is the panic.
Companies like Microsoft, Sony, and Amazon have been trying to offset this price shock by implementing buy now, pay later strategies, effectively divvying up the cost of goods over multiple months. But this is like slapping a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. Whether you pay $900 for a PlayStation 5 Pro now or later, you're still paying $900. You're likely paying even more depending on the payment plan. While this may be an easier pill to swallow for some, it's important to remember that everything has gotten more expensive and wages have stagnated. As much as I'd like to drop $1,400 on a Steam machine, most of my paycheck goes to rent, groceries, and transportation costs. Of course, everyone's financial situations are different, but generally speaking, this will have a knock-on effect on console sales across the board. And the less demand for a console means they will cost even more to manufacture.
So where does that leave us? The components for high-end consoles are getting more expensive, and it's not expected to slow down anytime soon. Play habits have changed significantly since last generation and the generation for that. Players' expectations are just different as well. The younger audience just doesn't care as much about graphics or having a dedicated game console when they can just play something on their phone or an iPad. AAA development cost has soared so much so that if your game isn't a smash hit that sells millions upon millions of copies, it is a failure. And the cherry on top of this pile of shit is that wages have stagnated, meaning we have less money to throw at this hobby. So the way I see it, based on the little information we know about the next generation of consoles, is that these consoles will be premium products intended for the hardcore audience. That market share is smaller, but in theory, willing to spend more money on these devices. Meanwhile, in order to remedy this shrinking market of gamers who want to be on on the cutting edge, I anticipate that a lot of big games we see 5-10 years out will also be playable on PlayStation 5s, Xbox Series X's, and so on. Additionally, I think we'll see more in the way of cloud gaming, something I personally do not care much for at all, but I feel like this is going to be the best way to get some of these higher end game experiences to people who simply can't afford these consoles. All this is conjecture, of course, but what I can say with confidence is that video games aren't going away. I don't even think consoles are going away. I just think that the way that the market and these platform holders have been treating consoles is about to change.